guys, it's Alex here, and welcome to another episode of Eldritch Mysteries. Today we're talking case files, taking a look at some of the strangest cold cases in history in a series I'll be calling Friday Files. In our first case, we're going right back, 53 years, to February 25th, 1957, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this is a pretty famous case. The boy in the box was the name given to a small boy, aged between 3 and 7, who was discovered in the woods off of Susquehanna Road in Fox Chase, Philadelphia, naked and wrapped in a blanket, hidden inside a box. The boy was literally covered in bruises, scars, and in clumps of his own recently chopped hair. He was severely malnourished, making his age impossible to figure out, but he did have what appeared to be surgical scarring on his ankle, groin, and neck. He was blue-eyed, pale, and had light brown hair, and his body was actually discovered twice. The first time by a hunter who was checking his traps, but since animal trapping is illegal in Pennsylvania and he didn't want to lose his traps, he chose not to report it, assuming someone else would come across the boy and report it themselves. It would be a further 2 days before the small boy was discovered again. Frederick Benesis, a local college student, found the boy when he was chasing a rabbit in the woods. He too panicked and waited another 24 hours before he could no longer wait in telling the police. On February 26, 1957, the police launched their official investigation, and they went full out for this. There were 400,000 flyers distributed in the local area and around the state, and there were posters in every police station, post office, and business. They even handed out pamphlets with every gas bill in the mail, so it was pretty well covered as well in the media. The crime scene itself was scoured over and over again by over 250 police academy recruits, who managed to recover a man's cap, a child's scarf, and a white handkerchief with the letter G embroidered in the corner. The police eventually posted photos of the boy, sitting up and dressed, in the hopes that someone would recognize the child, but no one ever came forward. There have been many theories over the years, but only 2 have ever been really extensively investigated. The first is the foster home. About 1.5 miles away from the crime scene is a foster home run at the time by Arthur Nicoletti. The theory goes that the child belonged to Nicoletti's stepdaughter and that they'd hidden his body so that no one would ever discover that she was an unwed mother, which in the 50s was a really big thing, especially in a small town. This theory was backed up by a psychic, I know, who, with no prior information, led them directly to the foster home. Using the psychic's information and the proximity to the crime scene, the police investigated the premises, finding a bassinet that matched the box, and they also found blankets that were exactly the same as the one he was wrapped in hanging on the line. However, when they did a DNA test to the stepdaughter, it turned out that she was not in any way biologically related to the boy. Nicoletti is still thought by many to be at least partially involved in the case, due to his refusal to take a lie detector at the time. In 1998, Nicoletti and his stepdaughter, who's now also his wife, by the way, were interviewed by the police lieutenant Tom Augustine, who was in charge of the investigation, and that interview appears to have cleared their names. The second theory also has a lot of bite to it, and happened in February 2002. A woman known only as Martha approached Philadelphia police and told them that her mother had purchased the boy from his parents in the summer of 1954. They'd named him Jonathan, and her mother had continued to sexually and physically abuse him for up to 2.5 years before his death. Apparently the boy died because at dinner one night he vomited his meal of baked beans, and Martha's mother had beaten him, slamming his head repeatedly against the floor until he was barely conscious. To clean up the mess, she'd put him in the bath, and he died while bathing. Now, both of these last things were confirmed by the police, because that evidence was never released to the public. His last meal had been baked beans, and he had water wrinkling on his fingers, indicating that he must have been in water when he died. She also claimed that her mother had cut off his long hair. She said it had been to try and conceal who he was. And she stated that her mother had forced her to help dispose of him in the Fox Chase area, and that while they were doing so, a man had seen them trying to remove the boy from the trunk of the car and had stopped to offer help, obviously not realizing they were disposing of a dead body, and that her mother had told her to stand in front of the license plate while she convinced the man to leave. In spite of all the evidence, the police were reluctant to believe Martha's testimony due to the fact she has a history of severe mental illness. And when friends and neighbours were interviewed, not one person remembered a small boy ever having lived there or even been in the house. Some even going so far as to dismiss Martha's claims as ridiculous. Although this may be due to another theory. Forensic artist Frank Bender believes the boy may have been raised as a girl due to his hastily cut long hair and manicured eyebrows. This has never been confirmed nor denied by anyone. The boy's body was laid to rest in a potter's field, but was then exhumed again for DNA testing in 1998, which they obtained using tooth enamel. He was reburied at Ivy Hill Cemetery in Cedar Brook, Philadelphia, who donated a large plot free of charge. A coffin, headstone, and funeral service were all paid for by the son of the man who had buried the boy in 1957, and many residents regularly placed flowers and toys on the grave. This case has been covered in many popular shows and documentaries over the years in hopes of finding the killer, but most people believe the trail has gone dry and that those who have committed it may well have passed on themselves, as they would have been adults back then and it's a long time ago. The police officers and investigators are aging out of service of anyone who really cared about the case, and it seems that the boy in the box may remain a mystery forever. If you like this video, consider subscribing and liking it below, and I'll see you next time.